When you're talking about money, one of the nicest or easiest ways to explain how money works is the rule of 72. And you can use it in a lot of different applications when you want to show people how much money, how fast their money will grow, using tax deferral or not having it tax deferred. Basically what the rule of 72 is you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate. So if we had a 6% interest rate, how long would it take that money to double? Okay, take 12 years, right? So what we're saying is the rule of 72 says whatever the interest rate is, if you divide that into 72, it will tell you how long it will take money to double. So in this case, you divide 6 into 72, then that's means it's going to double in 12 years. If it was, 10%, it would double in
7.2 years.
7.2 years. All right? And you can also use it backwards. If you know that money is doubled in your money is doubled in 8 years, then you can divide 8 into 72, and that will tell you that you get X amount of return on your money.
9%.
So, for example, so 72 divided by 8 years tells you that you had a 9% return. So if you had 100,000 and you ended up with 200,000 in 8 years, that means over those 8 years you got a 9% return. Make sense? So again, all it is the rule of 72 says if you know the interest rate or you know how many years it took to double, you can find out how many years it will take to double or what you got during that period of time for an interest rate to make that double. Right? Now the other rule is, which most people don't know, and the rule of 72 is fairly straight, everybody knows it. The other rule, which I learned not too far back, was the rule of 115. And that's how long it takes money to triple. Alright? And again, if you're getting a 5% return, for example, how long will it take that money to triple? I just divide 5 into this, right? So 5 into 10 goes twice, and 5 into 15 goes 3. So it'll take 23 years for that money to triple. So if you started off with 100,000 and you only got 5% return on that, means it would take 23 years for it to make 300,000. Right? And again, if you've got tripled your money, all right, let's say in
10 years.
excuse me,
10 years.
10 years. Okay. What kind of interest rate did you get?
11.5%.
11.5. This is years. All right. So it's the rule of 115 is for tripling money, and the rule of 72 is for doubling money. Okay. Any questions? All right. Now, how could you use that? Now let's think about this for a second. If I got $100,000 in CDs, and I'm getting a 5% return on that, how long is it going to take that money to double and become $200,000? Okay, 72 divided by 5, so that's 1, 22, so 4 and 2/5 years, right? So it's going to take a little over 14 years for that money to double. All right, so let's use a practical application of this. Let's say that you're getting 5% on your CDs, but you're getting 6% on an annuity. Just a regular fixed annuity. How long is it going to take to double?
12 years.
12 years. So in 12 years, it's going to become to 200,000, right? Plus, I'm going to have 2 more years of 6%, right, of that 200,000. So I'm going to gain 12,000 one year and say 13,000 the next year because I'm going to have 212,000. So now I'm talking 225,000 versus 200,000. Right? Okay, but let's take it a step further. On this CD, what's the problem with CDs?
Taxable.
I gotta pay taxes on it. So let's say I'm in a, 25% tax bracket. A 20% tax bracket. All right? What is my net interest rate?
4%.
4%. Right? So I'm in a 20% tax bracket. Okay? It's going to go a net 4% return. So now how long is it going to take my money to double?
18 years.
So in 18 years, it's going to become the 200,000. And at 6%, right? I don't have to pay tax on it. This is an annuity. All right, we said that it's going to take 12 years to be 200,000. So now we got another,
You're going to be 300,000.
it's going to be close to 300,000. So let's check that out with a rule of 115. Because we know it tripled, right? That's what we're saying. So if we divide 6 into 115, goes in once, 55. So what, 6/8 of 54? So that's about right, right? It took 18 years for that money to double, or triple, rather. So now we can be showing our clients, we got 5%, we got 5% on that money, but we got to pay taxes on it, right? So what's your net yield? 4%. So it means it's going to take 18 years for that money to triple.
Double.
Excuse me? Double to 200,000. But if I can get 6% on my money and I don't have to pay taxes on it,
Same time frame.
the same time frame, I'm going to have triple. So I'm going to gain 50% more, or actually 100% more. Because I started off with 100,000 Here I gained 100,000, right? That, okay, here I'm gaining 200,000, right? Because I gotta take away my original amount. So I have 200,000 of interest versus 100,000 of interest. And even if I'm in the worst tax bracket I could possibly be in, and I took out all this money at once, which way am I gonna be further ahead?
On the bottom.
Yeah, even if I'm in a 40% tax bracket versus, what, a 20% tax bracket. If I'm in a 40% tax bracket, 40% of 200,000 is what? 80,000? So now I got 120,000 plus my original 100,000. So now I got $220,000. Which way am I further ahead? So the rule of 72 and the rule of 115 can really help you when you're working with clients. What you want to do is really study those, and now you can, look like a genius. Because you can be working the numbers out right in front of them. Well, if I get 6% on that money, here's what's going to happen. Or if I get you just 1 extra percent, here's what's going to happen. Now, which one would you prefer? Any questions? All right. Let's take this one quick step further here. All right, because we had 220,000 here versus 200,000 there, if we paid the taxes on it. But really, we had 200,000 versus 300,000 in that 18 years, right? Now, if I'm saving for retirement, and I got 200,000 in CD money, and 300,000 in annuity money, okay? Am I going to take this 300,000 out? No. What do I want to do with that 300,000? I want to use it to generate an income, right? If I'm retired. So I'm saving for retirement. Because some people will say, well, you got to pay taxes on that money sometime. No. Only if you take it out. If I'm, if I'm retired and I'm going to get 5% on that $200,000, and that's what I'm going to use for income, right? How much income am I going to get? $10,000, right? And it's all taxable, it's all interest. If even say the interest rate goes down on the annuity, and I'm only going to take out the same 5%. All right, how much money am I going to get here? $15,000, right? 5%, and it's all going to be taxable. So either way, it's going to be taxable. So if I'm accumulating money, do I want to pay taxes on it while it's growing? Or do I want to have it billed tax deferred?
Tax deferred.
Yeah. Because tax deferred, I'm going to accumulate more money. That's why everybody talks about the IRAs and everything, why they're so good, is because you go have more money. Right? Or a Roth IRA or whatever. You can have more money. Now, I can use a CD Roth IRA, or I can use an annuity Roth IRA. Right? Now, if it's a Roth IRA, both of them are going to bill tax deferred. But again, what I showed you earlier is that this annuity is generally about 1% more than what a CD is in most cases. Now, it depends on the state. I know a couple states right now where the annuities are actually lower. But in most cases, you're talking about 0.5% to 1% more. Okay? But the fact that you can build tax deferred is the key. You know, if we went back and just said the annuity was paying the same as the same 5%, all right? But I'm paying taxes up here, so I'm gonna end up 200,000 in 18 years, right? And if it's paying 5% here, all right, 5% into 72 means it's gonna double in 14 years, right? So is this still gonna be more? Even at the same interest rate? So I'm always gonna be further ahead by using an annuity, at least to generate income. Now, when it comes to passing it on to your heirs, you got another problem, because it's going to be taxable. All that gain is going to be taxable to the heirs, so they're actually going to get less. This is after tax, right? So they're going to get the total 200,000. Here, we're going to talk about 200,000 of it is going to be taxable. But they're still going to end up more than 200,000. Even if we talked about the 50% tax bracket, they're still only going to pay taxes on 100,000, on 200,000. So in the 50% tax bracket, they're still going to end up with 100,000 plus the 100,000 they started with. So they're still going to be further ahead, all right, or at least equal to. And the chances are they're not going to be in a 50% tax bracket, though with the way the federal government is, who knows? Okay? Any questions? Is that simple to show a client? You know, and we're not even talking about index annuities, are we? Because if we were talking about an index annuity, then instead of gaining 5%, what might we be gaining?
8-9%.
Or at least 7.2%, which would mean it would double every
10 years?
10 years. So that 100,000, so in the 18 years, it would almost double twice, right? So now we're talking to start it off at 100,000, doubles in the first 10 years, becomes 200,000, and almost doubles again to become 400,000. So which would you rather have?
More.
Yeah. So I can do that without taking much risk, can't I? Now you say, well, I could put it into mutual funds. You could. All right? And you're going to have only a 20%, you know, what do they call that? The tax on that, capital gains. You have a 20% capital gains tax. All right? But only if I take it out, so it's almost growing tax deferred. But the problem is, depends on the turnover of the fund, inside the fund, because you're going to have other taxes. You know, you're going to have your capital gains, long-term capital gains, you're going to have short-term capital gains. So you may be paying 10%. So you're still going to be paying out extra taxes unless you have it into something that's tax deferred. Plus, we're not talking about even the annual fees. Because whether you make, you know, if you're mutual funds, whether you make money or not, you still have to pay your annual fees. Yeah. So you've got to, you know, so now you're talking about in the mutual funds or variable annuity or whatever, separate accounts, you're going to have your annual fees. Now, you won't have any taxes, but you're still gonna have your annual fees every year, which is gonna dilute your return. Any questions? I hope you enjoyed our first series of presentation nuggets. You can use these during your sales presentation, as we discussed earlier, and it will help you to keep it simple and to really get the concepts across to the clients and to your prospects. Because prospects will not buy if they're confused and if they don't understand. Now, with using these, it helps them understand what you're talking about, and they can see the benefit of using this. So use them during your presentation, and good luck to you, and make it a great day.